This episode of Rants from the Deep is sponsored by Polygraph Entertainment, makers of Snakes and Daggers, the game of political intrigue where nothing is what it seems.
I have never obstructed justice, and I think, too, that I can say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false.
I'll admit it.
Whoa.
I did try and fuck her. She was married.
That's huge news there.
No, Nancy.
Yeah.
No, this was marriages. And I moved on her very heavily. In fact, I took her out furniture shopping. She wanted to get some furniture. I said, I'll show you where they have some nice furniture. I took her out furniture. I moved on her like a bitch.
I believe I have met all of my responsibilities, and the server will remain private.
I was the CI director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
One thing I can promise you this, I will always tell you the truth.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. I'm your host, Brad Deep, and you're listening to Rants from the Deep. Today's episode, the first of Season 1, is titled Politics, Pricks, and Chicks. Now, before I go on, I just want to tell you how you can help this podcast remain afloat so it doesn't sink to the bottom of the ocean forever. You can donate just like you would to your local political party organization, except I won't promise to lower your taxes or reduce your health insurance costs. However, I can assure you that none of your donations will fund any dictatorships in third world countries, or hire mercenaries to assassinate important political figures I don't like. And when I say donate, I'm not talking about money. I'm aware that you're solicited hundreds of times a day for your hard-earned cash. And with food and rent prices going through the roof, you should keep your money. All you really need to do to help is spread the word. That's all I really ask of you. Simple and free, and all it takes is a few minutes of your time. You can post the episodes you like the most on social media and tell your friends about them and the podcast. That would mean more to me than any cash donations. Okay, moving on. Don't forget to sign up for my email list on my website at www.braddeep.com. That's braddeep.com, BRADDEEP. So you can be eligible for discounts and promotions on my 2 upcoming books, Horny, Sex Without Scruples, and God Mob, a gritty glance at the travesty of religion. Finally, before I begin, I want to be clear on something. I didn't create this podcast to give you solutions. I may propose some at times, but the main goal of this podcast is to expose problems, and maybe together we can find solutions. It would be pretentious of me to think I have all the answers, because I don't. I also encourage you to make comments anywhere you can, like our YouTube channel, for instance, whether you agree with me or not. Debate is the only way we will find solutions. And if you have topic ideas or even want to be a guest on the podcast, let me know in the comments, and you never know what can happen. Okay, today's topic is hot. I mean, it's hotter than a priest's asshole quivering for another round of well-lubricated thrusts with minors. I say this because I'm going to talk about the individuals I probably despise the most, besides the clergy, politicians. I don't know many people that like politicians, except for their partisans and militants. that make Pentecostals in a trance look like kitty cats sniffing catnip. Ever since I can remember, politicians have always reminded me of pimps, less the clown outfit, of course. They present themselves as prophets, and yet they behave like pimps. Seriously, though, besides priests and their religious doctrines, who enjoy banging youngsters as if they were on an extreme ride at an amusement park, there aren't too many people out there who make me sicker than politicians. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Hydra, but if you're not, the Hydra was a gigantic snake-like monster with 9 heads that Hercules fought during his excruciating 12 labors in Greek mythology. Except this isn't mythology, it's demagogy. Every time one head was cut off, another one spawned. Well, the Hydra reminds me of politicians. If one politician quits, 2 more show up to take his place, always looking for an opportunity, a moment to satisfy their greed. Imagine these are the people you vote for to run your town, your city, your state, and your country. How much sense does that make? Think about it. These insidious self-proclaimed pseudo-servants of the people always find a way to seep through the cracks and crevices of the system to benefit their giant egos and wallets. Think about it. Why would someone want to become a politician? I mean, seriously, what's the motivation? To serve? Give me a break. When you ask a child what he wants to be when he grows up, he'll tell you he wants to be a vet, an astronaut, a transgender, or a doctor. But how many kids tell you they want to be politicians? That's probably because the job description would say something like this: looking for worm in the hole subhuman with a master's degree in the art of manipulation, coercion, deceit, fabrication, and make-believe. Now, how many kids would aspire to this after reading the job description? Well, probably quite a few, because bad apples happen even when they've just come out of a uterus. Politicians will tell everyone they want to serve, and they're telling the truth for once. But what they forget to say is that they want to serve themselves. Of course, there are exceptions, but how long do they last? Because being honest in politics is like being a virgin when you're a prostitute. It only lasts a few seconds. Politicians are genius tricksters. They're skilled in the art of manipulative tactics and are matched only by religious figures when it comes to screwing people in the ass. They suck up to everyone when it's election time, greet strangers with fake smiles, shake the hands of people they consider inferior, and are ready to sell their own children for more votes. Everything they say is a lie, and everything they do is not what they say, even when they're having sex. Call me cynical, but why do they have professional writers write their speeches and advisors tell them what to say? If it was about telling the truth and being authentic, they wouldn't need all the smoke, masks, and mirrors. But for everything to run as smoothly as orgies at the Vatican, they need to hire the David Copperfields of the political world to make the illusion work. Politicians swear allegiance to a political party, but the only allegiance they have is to themselves. Trust me, if a hardcore Republican were offered a ton of money by the Democrats, he would switch teams faster than a rabbit gets fucked. Have you ever wondered why most politicians, presidents, governors are all wealthy? Why do they need to get into politics if they already have everything they need? Do you think Trump needed to be president? Of course not. But once you have all the money in the world, what's the next best thing? Power, and more money. How can these millionaires empathize with the general population, the working stiffs that work every day like slaves just to eat, pay their rent, and make ends meet, because the government takes part of their salary and offers almost nothing in return? Asking rich people to manage your affairs is like asking a homophobic white supremacist to organize the gay parade. Politicians run countries like pimps run their whores. They treat their people the same way a pimp talks to their girls. They hold the same discourse, like the pimp when he tells his girls that he's going to take care of them. He's going to protect them, and they're going to make loads of cash. Then once the girl accepts to work for him, doesn't take much time before he grabs most of her money, forces her to work more hours, and gives her a couple of slaps if she complains. When I look at how governments treat their citizens, there isn't much of a difference. When normal people answer questions in an appropriate and vague manner, they're often told that they are giving a politician's answer. I mean, you've heard this so many times, and so have I, because they know how evasive and dishonest politicians are. We all do. Politicians are fluent in bullshit, but we keep voting for these self-righteous, misleading, and abusive preachers of fake promises. Now, hear me out. I am no expert, but this truly sounds like a classic case of battered wife syndrome. The guy beats the shit out of his wife, and after it's all said and done, he apologizes and tells her that he loves her and won't do it again. And the woman, even though her left cheek is under her right ear, believes him. So why do we vote? I mean, the short answer is because we're idiots, and the long answer is because we're cowards, afraid to make a real change to the entire political system, which would require several revolutions and wars to get there, which most people are not willing to go through, including me. I'll admit it, I'm also a coward. But I stopped voting because I just can't vote for sociopathic narcissists. This podcast is my way of protesting. I know it's not much, but it's better than walking around like a zombie on crack believing what the ringleaders are telling me. Maybe if everyone stopped voting at the same time, it might send a clear message. I can already hear the tight-ass, anal, retentive, politically correct asswipes yelling cliches like, voting is our responsibility, or people fought bravely for the freedom you have today, stuff like that. This is what I have to say to these people. When you vote, you're not choosing one party over another, because the ultimate leaders, the ones behind the curtain that make the real decisions, the plutocratic puppeteers that pull the strings of the strawmen you see on television, no matter which party is elected, will still make the important decisions. You believe you're free because you vote, but trust me, it's all an illusion. There are two ways to control populations, the hard way and the soft way. The hard way is by placing a hardcore dictator at the helm of a nation who tells his people it's his way or the highway. And if they resist, they're faced with serious consequences that could be deadly. I mean, these guys won't hesitate to give citizens a beating in front of everyone. They're not hypocrites. They do it right in your face. That's usually what the white countries like the USA, England, and France set up in brown and black countries, usually third world countries using frontmen like Saddam Hussein, Idi Amin Dada, Ferdinand Marcos, Robert Mugabe, and a slew of others throughout history to do their dirty work. Then one day, when the patsies no longer want to cooperate, well, the spin doctors turn them into monsters so they can get rid of them. Now, we all know they were monsters before, but when they worked for the manipulators, they were good monsters. Now that they've become greedier, the manipulators, countries like the US, Britain, and France, want them dead. Just to give you a concrete example, France, this beautiful democratic country where leaders preach freedom like priests live a celibate life and never have sex, is one of those wonderful countries that practices neocolonialism in Africa. Nigeria is a country that has an immense reserve of uranium, yet most Nigerians don't have access to electricity because France controls 80% of Nigeria's electricity to meet the needs of the French. A single French company, Orano, exploits 30% of Nigerian uranium. The problem of African migrants in Europe is not going to be solved by sending them to other countries. It's going to be solved by freeing African countries from Western countries, which have always exploited their natural resources. This kind of exploitation works because the dictators in place are supported by these Western countries. And then the day when the dictators don't want to cooperate anymore or want more perks, well, like I said before, the spin doctors of the Western countries transform them into Frankensteins so they can get rid of them and replace them with guys who will get on their knees and give them the best blowjobs for years on end until the cycle repeats itself. You also have despots leading countries like Russia and China. Vladimir Putin has wiped out his adversaries by killing the few with the audacity to challenge his regime. And he keeps doing it without a worry in the world. You know why? Because he can. Journalists, reporters, and anyone else who voice their opinions against his regime have mysteriously committed suicide, been poisoned, or imprisoned. These are well-known facts here. I'm not inventing anything. But I guess when you have a magic wand, everything is permitted. China, on the other hand, has kept human rights to a minimum, and anyone who dares challenge the established government gets an all-inclusive paid vacation under the jail. It's ironic to think that a country with so many human rights violations continues to flourish because all the countries in the free world, like the US and Canada and England and France, are its biggest customers. There are other countries with similar totalitarian shut your mouth and do what you're told regimes, but you get the idea. Now, the soft way of controlling people is what these same countries do back home, giving their people the illusion that they decide because they get to vote, when the truth is that the only thing they decide is the kind of lubricant they'll use when they're sodomized by the system. There's a great quote from Dostoevsky that says, "The best way to keep a prisoner from escaping is to make sure he never knows he's in prison." Just think about it. Open your eyes. Governments have spies that work in other countries to collect intel so they can screw those countries where it hurts. Governments have people assassinated, and they prepare coups in strategic countries. The Americans are masters at setting up coups. Chile, Iran, Iraq, South Vietnam, and Guatemala are just some examples, and their leaders are the people you vote for to run your country. Does this make any sense? Of course, many people will say that countries need to have agencies like the CIA, Mossad, FSB, and M6 to protect their countries. But these people are evil murderers. We have evil people running our countries, people capable of killing without asking any questions. So don't ask yourself why the world we live in is chaotic. Imagine teachers teaching this in school, telling their students how governments really operate. It would be a catastrophe. The great late comedian Bill Hicks said it best, and I quote, "When the President of the United States wins the election, the 12 industrialist scumfucks that got him there in the first place take him into a dark room and pull down a screen. That's right, they want to show him a movie. You know what kind of movie they show him? They show him a movie of the Kennedy assassination. After the movie, they ask him if he has any questions. Most leaders are obviously assets being managed by their handlers, the invisible governments, the true showrunners. Hence, politicians are in fact someone else's bitch, but with great benefits. You probably think you're picking the right party when you're voting, but it's pretty much the same thing, disguised differently. And here's an example. I hope this is clear. Back in 2016, when Trump was running against Hillary Clinton, Trump was perceived as a rambunctious character with no filters, and he was that way. And Clinton as a more refined and experienced politician. But the truth is that they were identical. except for how they presented themselves, which caused them to be perceived differently. Now, let me explain. It's really simple. Trump was like hardcore porn. 3 fingers in the ass, sometimes 4. Fists, double penetration, face sitting, golden showers, brown showers. Well, maybe not brown in Trump's case. A little rimming, cream pies, whips, chains, dildos, the works, even a little pederasty. You get the picture? And Hillary, well, Hillary was more like soft porn, specifically Harlequin romance soft porn. It's all really happening the same way the hardcore porn is happening, but you don't really see it. I mean, yeah, you see a little, cleavage here and there, an ass cheek once in a while, but you don't see the fisting and the face sitting, the cream pies, the dildos, the chains, and finally, most importantly, you do not see the strap-on Hillary is wearing when she's fucking someone in the ass after she gets elected. But it's all going on behind the camera. There's probably one thing that Trump doesn't reveal, and it's that the director of his hardcore porn is probably Mexican, because beaners are cheaper, and he's probably an illegal one, because Trump snuck him in just before he built his wall. That's right, I forgot. He didn't build the wall. It was his biggest electoral promise, but he didn't do it. The figures, right? He's a politician. But anyways, that's the only thing he doesn't tell you about his director being Mexican. But for the rest, he's as raw as they get and in your face telling you exactly what he thinks, while Hillary is more secretive. But in the end, whoever you vote for, you are being played either way. It's just that one is more subtle than the other. But there is no way out of the ordinary citizen getting fucked in the end. End of story. But it doesn't end there. Politicians are not only scavengers and parasites, they're also cheaters and adulterers. Of course, I'm talking mostly about male politicians here, but most politicians are men anyway. If they're ready to cheat on their spouse after taking their vows, don't you think they're ready to screw the ordinary citizen several times over, even after swearing an oath? Bill Clinton lied to the entire world about Monica Lewinsky. How many affairs did John and Robert Kennedy have? Donald Trump must have dipped his stick in so many holes, I'm surprised this tool didn't crystallize and fall off. Arnold had sex with his housekeeper while his wife was on vacation, and the child born from this affair was born just days after Arnold's son with his wife, Maria Shriver, arrived in 1997. Internationally, guys like Berlusconi, Sarkozy, Schmidt, and Nelson Mandela couldn't keep their peckers inside their pants if their lives depended on it. And these are just a few examples of what is, in fact, a male epidemic, which I talk about in detail in my upcoming book, Horny: Sex Without Scruples. These guys are jumping in the sack when they're public figures. So can you imagine what they can do while they're running your country? I can understand Nelson Mandela. I mean, after spending 27 years in jail, I would fuck a goat. Let's get something straight here. People with leadership skills always want something, whether it's money, fame, power, or glory. Politicians are people with a lot of ambition, and they will do anything to get to the top. Donald Trump is the perfect example, and I'm using him as an example because he's so obvious. This guy is a multi-millionaire, so why did he want to become president so badly? He had everything he needed, but he wanted to satisfy his ego and be acclaimed by the people. Even after losing the last election, this guy's trying again. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with all this jail stuff, but he still wants to be president. How insane is that? He's bored and he needs to feel important. Do you realize how many shady deals this guy was involved in the past? Don't get me wrong. There are some honest politicians out there, but they're as rare as cardinals and bishops at the Vatican that haven't participated in a full-fledged gangbang. Good people with honest intentions are not interested in leadership roles because they have an honest agenda. People like Doctors Without Borders, risking their own lives to save others, work in the shadows. The volunteers that work for charitable organizations all over the world do so benevolently. I'm not talking about the people that run these organizations because they're just as corrupt and greedy as the politicians. They're also in it for themselves, creating all sorts of administrative expenses to make their lives more comfortable. I'm talking about the people out in the field, helping others, making a real difference at no cost. The volunteers that flew to Ukraine and risked their lives to help during the war. These are the real heroes, the real difference makers. I started this podcast so I could talk about issues that affect us all, hoping we could change things. I know it won't happen overnight, and it may never happen, but at least if we talk about it, the seed is planted, and hopefully one day it will sprout. If we want to see change, politicians must be more accountable, but more importantly, they must work in a closed environment, without a wife, nor a husband, without children, without family, and most importantly, with a deferred salary. All expenses and food paid, of course. Business trips, no problem. But the salary is to be paid at the end of the mandate. You want to lead the country? In my book, that's how you do it. No benefits, no privileges, just govern the right way. Prove yourself. Walk your talk, and then you get paid. They must be entirely devoted to the cause, which is bigger than they are and their personal bank account. If at the end of their mandate, they've done a good job, they receive their salary plus a bonus. No problem. It's going to be well deserved. Now, if they did zilch, they get a nice bowl of chinga tu madre. Even if you don't know what that means, I'm sure you understand. Or just watch the movie Blood In, Blood Out. It's a great movie, and you'll get the point when you watch it. Call me crazy, but that's how they should roll. Believe me, with conditions like these, all the scammers would disappear in a flash. The only problem is that there would probably be no one left. Finally, the ultimate condition for being elected leader of a country should be that any leader who declares war on another country must be the first to fight in the trenches. I guarantee you that wars would become a thing of the past almost instantly. And I say almost because there's always going to be an asshole, a moron, ready to fight just for fun. Dear listeners, I leave you with these parting words. Don't ever think for 1 second that your government cares about you, because it doesn't. It's just a fact. Accept it. Granted, some governments are worse than others, but in the end, it's always the people that pay, and that's you and me. That's my spiel. You don't have to agree with me, but thanks for listening. Go right ahead and give me your opinions and solutions in the comments. It would be greatly appreciated. Don't forget to tune in every Monday night at 8 p.m. for a new episode of Rants from the Deep. Now, if you're into prayers, saints, orgies, oil-based lubes, and the Ave Maria, our next episode titled Religions, Pigeons, and Perversions will shed a light on the true spirit of the pious. So make sure you tune in. Until then, have a good one. Peace out. I'm Brad Deep, and this was Rants from the Deep.